Good morning. Welcome to Fayetteville Baptist Church. My name is Billy Paul Williams. We're glad that you're joining us this morning by Facebook or whatever means. And so I made this up for you to see. This is my name, Billy Paul Williams, in case you're not a regular here. This is my phone number, 256-234-1369. That is my cell phone, so you can text me there or call me. If you have prayer requests, we'll be glad to pray for that person with you to bring it before the church through Facebook and other things. If you would just like to talk, if you are having some problems, would like to talk. Several people have asked me this week about the offerings, the church regular offering, the Andy Armstrong offering. If you would like to donate during this time when the church is not publicly open, okay, if you'll text me at this number or call me, I'll put you in touch with where to send it, okay? So we don't have to give it out sort of publicly, okay, if you would like to do that. So keep these things in mind, okay? All right, we have several prayer requests that have been mentioned. Leslie Hay would like for us to pray for Scott Hay. I taught him at Central, remember him. Wendy Higginbotham, who's now Wendy Higginbotham Charette, said she was working this morning. She said, remember her and all the healthcare workers, and I know we have a lot of them in our church that are under the gun, so to speak, during this difficult time. Please remember them. Do you ladies have any others? By the way, in case you're watching, you can't see, there are 4 of us here, and we're all sitting 12 feet apart. We're doubling up on the safety factor. But it just goes so much better when there's at least a face or two that I can see. And so we would appreciate any comments on the lesson. We're going to do a separate one for our Sunday school lesson, one for our children's church, and then one for the sermon. Altogether, they would probably last around an hour. So we thank you for joining us, and if we can be of any help to you, then please let us know. I would ask our church to remember to pray for each other by name and specifically. I posted on Facebook this morning. I couldn't sleep, of course, and I laid in bed and prayed for each person by where they usually sit, and I counted, and I was up to 110 people. And so I pray for all 110 by name. Amen. And if you would like to be on that list, please just let me know. If you come to church with any regularity, then I know where you usually sit, and I pray for you by name. All right? So that being said, if you have your book, turn to page 43. We're continuing in Romans, and the name of the lesson is At Peace. And it says, we live with a basic understanding of cause and effect. Most people, when something happens, they want to know why. Have you ever noticed that? Why did this happen? In the Bible, Jesus and the disciples came upon a man that was born blind. His disciples asked, who did sin, this man or his parents, and he was born blind? In other words, what was the cause? We know the effect was he was blind. What was the cause of that? And so what Paul wanted to do was to walk through his readers and sort of explain this cause and effect of the Christian life. On page 44, as we saw last week, Paul identified the problem in chapter 3 that sin had wreaked havoc on the human race, and Jews and Gentiles, both alike, needed a Savior. And now what he's doing in our lesson today is he is discussing the other side of the coin. What are the effects of being a Christian? And so he goes through there and he talks about these things, and we want to hit some of the highlights of that today. If you'll notice on paragraph 3 on page 44, in case you have a book at home and you're following, it says, faith has always been God's standard for justification. And we talked last week how justification is just as if you had not sinned. And we've all sinned, but as we are saved and clothed in the righteousness of Christ, then God sees us like he sees his son, sinless before him. And of course that salvation is through faith. And that is the way to be saved. And he pointed out that through the first Adam, sin entered the world. Through the second Adam, which was Jesus Christ, provided a way for people to be saved. All right, and so that's sort of an introduction. So if you're still following, look on page 45. He talks about the benefits of being saved, of being declared righteous by faith. And he said, first of all, the first benefit of justification is peace. And it means more than just the absence of war, the absence of conflict. It means that you have completeness or unity with Christ. You can have peace with Him because no longer are you at war, because you are not in your sins anymore, that you are justified through His Son, Jesus Christ. Secondly, as a result of peace, believers have access to God. You can go to the Father. I noticed something interesting this week. Somebody had posted on Facebook or something that said that the Pope had said, if you're not able to go to church or be in the church or church is closed and you can't confess your sins to a priest or like that, he said you can go directly to God and confess your sins. And somebody said, wow, amazing. Who would have ever thought about that, going directly to God? And
wow.
That's what we have.
Yes.
Through salvation. We have direct access to the Father.
Yes.
We no longer have to go through sacrifices and other things. We have direct access to Him.
Yes.
Okay? And so I think that is what's such a great point, that we can go directly to the Father. Go to page 46. It talks about justification, which means just like we have not sinned, we are now made perfect through His Son. But it says that justification will not remove all the afflictions in our lives. In other words, just because we are a Christian, just because we are saved, just because we have peace with God, and just because we have access to the Father, it doesn't mean that we're not going to have trials and tribulations.
Right.
And in his writings there, Paul talks about how we can use those times in order to grow in our Christian faith. First of all, he said that going through afflictions or troubled times or through storms, which is what we're going to speak about next week, Paul said that creates endurance. He talked about when athletes are training, that they exercise and they train to build up more strength and more endurance. There's a saying, if there's no pain, there's no gain. In other words, if you just exercise to the point where it starts hurting, you quit, you're not going to get any faster, you're not going to get any stronger. And Paul said that same thing. The hard times we experience build spiritual muscle that help us to endure and move forward. He also said that endurance produces character. As afflictions squeeze our lives and reveal ungodly actions and attitudes, we are strengthened in our walk with Christ. And the second paragraph from the bottom on page 46 is such a good one. I just want to read you that whole paragraph. It's a short one. It says, the world is filled with disappointments. Focusing on disappointments can mar our character and produce despair. But the hope God produces in our lives through affliction, endurance, and character does not fall into that category. It never disappoints. It always meets us right where we are with exactly what we need, because it's rooted in God's love. Our afflictions lead to hope, which gives us a keener sense of His love for us. And so God pours out His love upon us during our times of affliction, during the storms in our life. If you look at the bottom of page 47, it says God's response to our helplessness, which is what we are apart from Him, His answer to that was to send Jesus to die in our place. Jesus became the sacrifice once and for all for every person that would ever be saved. At the top of 48, it makes a great point. At the top of page 48, it says, sin required the penalty of death. And I think we need to all understand that the penalty for sin, the wages of sin, is death. Sin required the death penalty. And so somebody had to pay that price. And God sent His Son Jesus to pay that price for everyone that would have faith and trust and believe in Him. Because it says without divine intervention, we would be forced to pay that price ourselves, both in this world and throughout eternity in hell. But it says God provided a substitute for our sins at the right time. In Galatians 4:5, I read this last night, chapter 4, verses 4 and 5, it talks about at the right time, God sent His Son. And it explains here what He meant by at the right time. It says the relative peace of the Roman Empire combined with a common language, the Greek language, and a general curiosity about religious ideas, created a perfect historical environment for the Messiah's arrival. But it was also the perfect time because humanity was helpless.
Yes.
Apart from God, we were helpless. And so at the right time, God sent his Son to be the Savior of the world. And he talked about how Jesus laid down his life for everyone. It said a few heroes might voluntarily suffer for someone. We've all seen movies or know stories where somebody gave their life for somebody else. We've seen more movies where somebody perhaps throws themselves on a hand grenade to save the lives of their friends and buddies in the platoon and that type of thing. And that's exactly what God did. He sent his Son Jesus to throw himself on the sins of the world to save our lives.
Yes.
And I thought this was interesting. The second paragraph on page 48 under verses 7 and 8 says sometimes people are tempted to think they have to get right before God will accept them. I remember inviting a couple of friends of mine that I played softball with and against at different times to come to church. And typically an answer I got was, well, when I get my life together, I'll come to church. When I get right, when I start doing that which is right. And you know, if we wait till we're good enough, we'll never come.
Never be. We'll never get here.
If we're waiting to be good enough. You know, it says we can't ever become good enough. And so Christ died for us while we were still sinners.
Yes.
But the benefits of justification are great, but the cost was great. We must never forget that sacrifice. And our children's church that we'll have in a few minutes is also related to that same sacrifice that God paid for us when he sent his Son to die on the cross. It also says because we've been justified by God through faith. Now let me say again, justified, what it means is just like we had never sinned. Justification means is God looks at us when we are saved. He looks at us as if we are sinless because when he looks at us, he doesn't see Christy and Wendy and Lisa and Bill Paul.
He sees Jesus.
His Son, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
He sees that sinless person. So therefore God's wrath, which is against sin, he doesn't see that sin in us. But somebody that's not accepted him, when he sees them, he sees the sin in their life. And his wrath is poured out upon them because the standard of judgment is perfection. And we stand perfected through his Son. But without his Son, then we stand guilty and we stand condemned. God provided a gift, a way out, so to speak, for all of us. The death of his Son through belief and trust in that. And we've said for the last few weeks, and I love that, by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone. That's all it takes to be saved. And I think that's why over the years many people have sort of rejected that because they think it's too easy, it's too simple, there must be more to it than that. And there simply is not. Because God had to make that salvation available so that the genius could understand it, but also the slowest one, which I often am, could also understand that. See? And that's what he's done. He has given us an opportunity to have a new relationship with God through the death of his Son. And we must accept that offer by simple, childlike faith. And in his writing, Paul also reminded the Romans that Jesus' death was only part of the story. He also rose from the dead. You know, we sing a song a lot of times, because he lives, I can face tomorrow. And because Jesus is alive, our lives can be different. We have salvation both now, we have it in the present, and dealing with the problems that we're struggling with now in the world. Without Christ to lean on, I don't know how people make it.
Me either.
Faith and fear do not go hand in hand. Faith and fear are opposites. And we have faith in God, that should eliminate our fear. Now, should we take precautions? Should we be concerned? Absolutely. But God has not given us a spirit of fear. We have faith in him. We're saved from the consequences of sin by his death. We walk with holiness with him in this life and in the life to come. And the last paragraph at the bottom of page 49 says, salvation does not make us perfect. That's what we understand, and that's what the world sometimes misses. They think if you're a Christian that you're perfect. that you're not supposed to sin. And that's why when a Christian falls, the world rejoices. Think about that. When a Christian leader or somebody that's a pronounced Christian sins or falls, the world jumps on them. And Christians oftentimes jump on them as well. You know, it's been said that Christians are the only ones that shoot their wounded. When we're wounded, when we fail, you know, then we oftentimes just want to write them off and forget them and cast them to the side. You know, and we need to understand that we still do sin and miss the mark that God has set. But that does not change our standing. We do not lose our salvation when we sin. Christ is still our substitute.
Amen.
We are still righteous in His eyes.
Amen.
That's why Paul said we have reason to rejoice. Once saved, always saved. We always have that advocate, and that is Jesus Christ through His Son. Joy makes our witness to the world much more effective. People need to look at us during this coronavirus time and see that there's something different about us, that we're handling this situation different. And I'm going to tell you, I've not always been the best example of that. I miss my umpiring. I miss my officiating. I miss my baseball. I miss my softball. I miss my church family. I miss the gathering together. I miss the visiting. I miss getting together with my friends to play rook and other things. We miss that. But we need to keep our eyes and focus on God and have faith and trust in Him, that He who began a good work in us will see it through to the end. And
Amen.
to close it up on page 50, I always like these in my context. It always sums up what we've said. Bless you. It says, peace with God results from being declared just through faith in Jesus Christ. See, you need to understand that we are in our sinful nature, we are at war with God, because God's standard is perfection and righteous. But when we have peace through His Son, we have forgiveness, and we can live at peace with Him. Number 2, God demonstrates His love to us through the sacrificial death of Jesus. In the Old Testament, sacrifices were made. Animals were sacrificed. Sheep and lambs and pigeons and goats and other things were sacrificed for the forgiveness of sin. But God sent His Son, Jesus, to be that sacrifice once and for all, for every person ever born or ever will be born. His death covered our sins. And so He became the great sacrifice. And finally, believers are saved through faith in Jesus now and forever. When you accept Christ as Savior, you get the benefit not only of having eternal life in heaven, but you have the benefit of having Jesus to walk with you through this life as well. He is your rock. He is your shelter. He is the one you can depend upon. He is the one you can look to. He is the one that cares for you both in this life and in the life to come.
Amen.
Any comments? Okay, that's the Sunday school wrap.